The next speaker is a personal development coach and entrepreneur. As a survivor of abuse and abandonment, she is passionate about helping people to take control of their lives through total mindset transformation. Her mission is to influence and empower men and women to achieve a constant and unstoppable higher expression of life and love. Today, she will share with us a snapshot of her journey to her own transformation, a story that depicts how to be unstoppable. To show you the future of story showing, please welcome to the stage Grace Harris. Give it up for Grace.
At the age of 5 and before she could read, my daughter had won her very first classroom public speaking contest. It wasn't quite a 60-second elevator pitch, but a story of our Melbourne holiday, which she had learned to tell by using only the emotional power of her memory. How many of us have childhood memories that are so vivid, it seems like only yesterday when you think about it? At the age of 5 and before I could read, the most vivid memory I have is when my mother deserted me. One day she took me for a visit to my grandmother's house, and as soon as we arrived, she left and promised to come back. I waited all day outside my grandmother's house, but when the sun began to set and darkness fell, I realized she was never coming back for me. The very next day, I was being trained by my grandmother to fetch water from the metal pump, wash clothes using my bare hands, hours of hard manual labor. I was so young and grieving for the loss of my mother and my real home, confused and scared. Then I heard my grandmother's high-pitched voice talking down to me. "It's hard, isn't it? Get on with it. Hurry up." Her voice stabbed me in the chest as I tried to do the best work I could, sitting in that small step. Suddenly, I felt myself move up and away from where I was. It felt so odd. So I turned and looked back, and there, I saw myself, a young child with her head down, heart convulsing with sorrow, ferociously holding back tears. That moment, at the age of 5, I had my first out-of-body experience, born from extreme mental and emotional shock. Have you ever had a moment in your life when the pain was so great, it was unbearable? Have you ever had your heart so broken that you couldn't feel anything? In 2015, research by Pegasus Economics states that if the impacts of child abuse, including sexual, physical, and emotional, on an estimated 3.7 million adult Australians are properly addressed, the combined budget position of the government could be improved by a minimum of $6.8 billion on a yearly basis. On a more intimate scale, I am here to beg you the question: could you be living in a state of stunted abundance by holding on to your past stories and allowing the self-destroying beliefs that people have injected in your innocent and vulnerable state? I went on to raise myself in my grandmother's house, surrounded in an environment filled with alcohol and drug abuse. I was As a small child, I used to listen to the song Romeo and Juliet by Dire Straits in the kitchen, watching my uncles drink and smoke pot. I was 7 years old and so high from secondhand smoke that if you played that same song right now, I would be high as a kite again. So my upbringing rendered a cycle of self-sabotage, which I subjected my own life to. For over 3 decades, I locked myself up as a prisoner and as a victim, so fixated on the wrong idea about relationships that I unconsciously indulged myself, not once, but twice, in domestic relationships that were so vicious, even I could not explain where some of my injuries came from. One day, lying on a hospital bed, I was about to go in for a shoulder surgery. The doctor and I were having small talk. I remember pleading with him, "Please take care of me. I want to be here for my children." And I began to cry as they put me under anesthesia. Hours passed, and I find myself in and out of consciousness. I could hear people's frantic voices around me, screaming, running. The images were fuzzy, and then total darkness. When I finally opened my eyes, I began to cough, and I choked, blood sputtering out of my throat. It was a mess. I almost died on the operating table from overdose of anesthesia because the doctor decided to give me just a little bit more, as I was so highly strung before surgery. Having survived that near-death experience, I began to look for the answers from within and took a good look at myself. I was simply so tired from fighting my inner battles. On one hand, I exposed my demons to not only be toxic, more than anything, those demons were predictable and redundant. On the other hand, I recognized my future, a future so bright and so daring. I could clearly see the price I needed to pay for it. The price of total, unapologetic, fearless self-love. I began by shifting my beliefs to accepting that I am the absolute supreme authority of how I can experience my life. I removed people, places, thoughts, experiences that did not serve my future, and spent the last 6 years changing the landscape of my life. It is now barely recognizable. What a beautiful and liberating experience. 3 years ago, I finally got it right and met the man of my dreams. 15 months ago, I left my corporate career to become an entrepreneur in this amazing personal development space. And in a span of 12 months, I was recognized as one of the leading business coaches in my field. And my children have never been happier to see their mommy always laughing and smiling. In your life, you are the creator of your own destiny, no matter what. You are the hero that you have been waiting for, no matter what. The answers to your questions are within you, no matter what. No one else will be able to conjure the silver lining but yourself, no matter what. My question to you is this: are you willing to expose your demons so that you can unearth the greatness of your spirit? Are you willing to confront yourself so you can recognize the power that lives inside your pain? Are you big enough to exonerate yourself from years of self-sabotage so you can begin to celebrate the beauty and the strength inside of you? Are you willing to show up unapologetic, fearless, and unstoppable? Thank you.
Yeah, keep it going for Grace Harris. Whoa. What energy. Energy. Wow. Thank you, Grace. You do, like someone said earlier in the conference, befit your name.